Welcome to the Let Me See What You Smoking Show. And we back. Soho Empire Cannabis Club with the one and only Ben All Caps. It's an honor, my brother, to have you on the show.
It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're actually the first one that is not actually a cultivator. So this is a different type of show that we're going to do on this one. You know, we're going to be reviewing work that Ben has worked, a cultivator that he has worked with. So, Ben, All Caps, my brother. Who is Ben All Caps?
Yeah, I mean,
Talk to us about who's Ben All Caps, bro.
that's an unintentional name, I gotta say. Like, this is the result. This is what Instagram has done to us, my friend. That my Instagram name is the name that I am often referred to as in the streets or in person by lots of people who know me. And so my company is All Caps. My name is Ben. And more specifically, my name is Ben Gilbert. And, you know, you can Google me and shit. I'm very public. All Caps is the company that I run. It's a cannabis communications company, is the way I would broadly put it. Based in New York City, focusing on New York cultivation, specifically small batch, high quality New York cultivators, of which we are blessed to have a ton, an absolute ridiculous wealth of. So what I do primarily is produce the New York Growers Cup, but I also run a number of other events. I produce plenty of events, including the New York Growers Showcase, which we have done a few of, which highlighted winners and runners-up from the New York Growers Cup. I produce drop events for people. I help growers write applications to the government. Lots of stuff. Communications is my specialty. I was a journalist for a long time, so my background is all communications.
So yeah, this guy he's an asset in this community. He's one of the guys that have helped a lot of people, a lot of cultivators on the come up, a lot of people like myself that I got inspired by the moves that he has made. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you.
And also the knowledge, you know, the expertise that you give. You know, every talk, you know, it's always like a lesson. You know what I'm saying? That's how I see it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like I say, he's one of the founders of the New York's Growers Cup, which
I should say.
Yeah,
like, to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm not, since you said before, I think it's a great moment to highlight, like, I'm not a grower yet, at very least. I've grown some very fine tomatoes before and plenty of beautiful herbs, but no weed, not yet. And I'm very lucky to have partners in the Growers Cup who are growers. So my partners are the Collector, like there's some Collector flower right there, Sensei Cultivation, and Dr. Dankenstein. And so in working with growers who are local, who know growers, who are part of the legacy community, like, I don't remotely claim legacy. Like, I am not legacy. Like, I sold some weed to friends when I was 18 or 19 or whatever, right? Like everybody did, because I've been smoking weed for 25 years, but like, I'm not claiming that. What I'm trying to do is help people who are from that world to go legal, to start businesses, to go from being a person or a few people to like small businesses, successful small businesses, sustainable small businesses, the most important things. So yeah, my role is in communications, event production, lots of stuff like that. And that's what I can bring, though. That's what I can offer that isn't growing weed or any number of other things that you can do in the cannabis industry.
So, you know, the Let Me See What You're Smoking show is all about reviewing, highlighting a cultivar. In today's show, we're highlighting the Purple Octane Jealousy, which is by Smokey Bodega from Staten Island. Shout out to Shaolin cultivators and everybody in the whole movement. But besides that, Smokey Bodega is actually working with Ben All Caps in a Ben All Caps production.
Yeah.
Which is the Bonanza?
The Fall Flower Bonanza, I believe is what you're looking for. It's a ridiculous title because I'm a ridiculous person. And that's how it goes. And like, the idea with it is that we highlight a bunch of really talented local growers, like every event we do, right? Like no matter what event we're doing, like the backbone of it is always that. Like foundationally is like putting people who smoke good weed in direct contact with people who grow great weed and allowing that relationship to go from there, you know? So in that sense, like this event we're doing, the Fall Flower Bonanza in Midtown on September 16th, is with the Collector, Smokey Bodega, with La Caballera, a very talented local grower who people haven't heard of really that much just yet. Like this is her first time doing an event at all. We've got KF Craft Organics, another very talented grower.
Shout out to him.
Is a local, and of course Foos Flowers, who I think we all know at this point produces some truly excellent shit. Like
one of the best, one of the top contenders.
And also, if I might say so, a ridiculous person, which is great. As a ridiculous person, I can say so myself. I love it. So yeah, that's one example though of something where there's a bunch of like really talented local growers that, you know, frankly, like we might get into this, but like the state hasn't enabled them to really start growing on a licensed basis yet, right? Like you should be able to walk into a store and buy this weed, and you can't yet. And it's not because they don't want it; it's because they can't yet, and that's a failure of legalization in New York State.
The purple octane jealousy, is practically a permanent marker baby, or you could say it came probably first in the permanent marker, but you could say it's almost the exact lineage, which is the biscotti, the Sherby X, and the jealousy. Definitely, you feel the jealousy is a clean smoke. Shit, I put it in one of my menus in one of my shows. Shout out to Smokey Bodega.
I mean, I think the greatest compliment of all that I can pay to the purple octane jealousy is that I was very lucky to try a bunch of different strains from Smokey's latest harvest. And they were all really great. Like I liked them all. I was excited to smoke through all of them. There was nothing bad, right? The minimum was like, this is very good. But that was so good. It like stands out.
Yeah.
You smoke with people and they're like, yo, what's that? Like where it goes around. We had this ridiculous rotation to sesh with like 5-6 people the other day, smoking all sorts of amazing weed. And one joint of that purple octane jealousy goes around. I had multiple people in that session being like, what was that? What was that? What's that? What's this joint specifically? And you're like, it cuts through that. When weed cuts through, like we were talking about this before, about the first smoke of the day, and how important that is. Like the first thing you smoke in the day, how meaningful that can be in terms of like your palate being clean and ready to go, and like you're not high at all, like whatever. Like it's a different experience than smoking at any other point in the day. But if something cuts through after you've been smoking for like hours, that shit is also really meaningful. It's like another like big thing for me, you know?
The jealousy stands out completely on this, you know?
Definitely.
It's really clean smoke. Shout out to Smokey, man. This shit is to me, it's better than the permanent market. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. And that permanent marker is great.
It's great.
I would be, if that was the best thing of this harvest, that would be great.
Yeah.
Like,
and I seen that you told me the Khalifa Kush that he got. You know, that's a I'd like to try that one of those. But we're gonna go to the next question. So talk to me about the New Year's Growers Cup. How did that start? You know, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, the timing could not have been more incredible in terms of just running into the right people at the right time. You know, like I started my company in July of last year, like early July. I knew I wanted to start a cannabis communications company. I didn't know what I was going to do, really. I knew I wanted to work with growers, and I knew that I had a focus on like the micro cultivation license broadly. But that's really it. Like I didn't really know too many people. I knew a handful of growers, like whatever. And I was very lucky to meet the collector and Sensei Cultivation, Dr. Dangenstein, through, of course, Instagram, which like a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Instagram. I have a lot of criticisms for Instagram, but like that, it's like the foundational service by which all of the people that I know communicate. Like I know people go to Signal, they go to Telegram, they go whatever. Like I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like everybody, a lot of people meet through that. And like that was critical for us, is meeting through Instagram and then meeting in person and deciding like, all right, this is like a moment to do this, right? Like there was a previous competition that was very like New York centric in naming, but not New York centric in the focus. And it was something that it seemed like there was a huge opportunity here for us to do something really interesting and unique, to do something that was focused on New York growers specifically. And there was clearly a movement, right? Like not just in the city with people like the Collector or Sensei Cultivation or Foos Flowers or Marijuana Talk or the Godmother's Garden or the Mechanics Farm. Like I could go through a long list of all the people who are just near the city, to say nothing of Smokey Bodega or the Staten Island guys, whatever. But upstate, there was also a movement happening separately, and it's still happening. The central state, West New York, like all of it. Like there's a huge, incredible wealth of growers around Albany. There's a bunch of great growers around Buffalo. There's a bunch of great growers in the southern tier. Like it's like amazing. And that those movements are happening at the same time is what enabled something like the Growers Cup to be successful. It's like, whatever about us producing it and everything else, like all the work we put in, like, sure, if there weren't like growers all over the state growing super good weed, there would be no Growers Cup. Like, there's no Growers Cup without that. And it's because there is, thankfully, this amazing foundation of talent here that enabled the Growers Cup to be successful. Like, we had 91 entries last year. We were looking for 100. I didn't think we would hit 100. I was like, hopefully we hit 70. And we had 91, and it felt like a miracle. Because, like, it's our first year, right? Like, who the fuck are we? Like, not to be, please excuse my language, but, like, I'm nobody. Like, nobody in the weed industry knows me. Who am I? I started a company last year. There's no reason to trust me. And, like, the collector, Dangenstein, Sensei, they all have cachet in the community. They have trust. It's different. I don't mean that. But, like, for me, like, if we're trying to sign a sponsor or whatever, if I'm trying to convince a grower, if I'm trying to convince you, a person, to come out of the shadows, enter this cup, pay money to enter this cup, give us your flower for free to enter this cup, like, it's a lot. Like, I got to convince you that I'm real. And that's most of the job. That has been most of the cup, though, has been, like, convincing people, like, I'm not kidding. Like, I really want to support you and what you're doing and want to highlight local flower like that, and just proving that and showing up over and over and over and over. And that's been most of the experience, though, of building the cup. But it's, again, like, without there being all these talented growers, like, none of this would be happening. There would be I wouldn't be smoking this joint, like, yeah.
Shout out to all those New York cultivators all over the state.
Most definitely.
You know what I'm saying? Because they are part of the movement as far as the culture. Without them, it's nothing happening. And not only that, they're putting a name to our city, to our state.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is beautiful.
Yes.
The Growers Cup, the outcome was fantastic.
Thank you.
Being part of it, I was a judge.
Yeah.
And
thank you for judging.
No, thank you for for putting me part of it. It was my first experience, and it was something like different. But seeing the outcome, it opened a lot of roads and a lot of doors to a lot of people, and it also connected a lot of people. So, what are you bringing to the table this year?
Oh man, I think so. Like, the goal this year is. Last year was about establishing precedents and setting a foundation and proving ourselves, right? Like, proving that we're doing something real, that this is something, like, I don't mean to be like, this is real and serious. I'm not trying to be, like, over dramatic, but I mean, like, we're not, like, this isn't a cash grab. It's not, like, the point isn't to figure out how to get as many sponsors as possible and make as much money as possible. Like, it's about establishing a foundation of an industry here. And this year, if there's anything that we need to do, it's about I think I've used this phrase on social media a bunch, but it's this concept of, like, dialing it in, right? Like, it's a concept you hear a lot in grower jargon about, like, a strain. I've been running the strain for several generations, and I'm just dialing in the room to the point where it's now running it the way I want it to, and it's producing the plant the way I want, whatever, right? Like, I'm fucking it up a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. So I mean this to say that this year is about rounding off the rough edges. It's about making it a little bit nicer of a production, making sure that the stage production and the award ceremony part is, not to say anything bad about last year, but just making it nicer, a little bit more well-produced, a little bit more thought out in terms of that. Increasing the size of the event, but not to the scale where we're, doubling or tripling attendance. Like, we want it to be a more accessible event for a larger number of people, for sure. Like, we're keeping the ticket prices the same, and we're keeping the event style the same and everything else, but we want to be able to allow, more people to attend than we did last year. We just had limitations on the space in the venue. And so we have a larger venue this year. We're moving to Brooklyn, which I'm very excited about because I live in Brooklyn and I love Brooklyn. But, yeah, I mean, this year was about subtle changes that we wanted to, I don't even want to say fix, because it wasn't, like, broken last year. A lot of the stuff that we changed is stuff that we, I guess for lack of a better term, it's like stuff that just could be sharpened, right? Like the categories, for instance. Like, we didn't change the categories dramatically. We didn't add a bunch of new categories. We have 5 categories this year. We had 5 categories last year. We had a gas category last year and a haze category last year and an exotic/rare category last year, and those are all exactly the same as this year. The only differences really are that we changed fruit into sweets so that it's a little broader. And that's just like a subtlety of difference, right? Like, if you entered Trop last year in the fruit category, You could probably do that in sweets this year too, right? Like it's really not that big of a difference in that respect. Or whatever. I don't mean to say trop specifically, but and the same thing goes for the other category. We had that last year. Too broad. So we went with sour this year, which is the most requested category by 10,000 miles from anybody who, like, if you go back through the comments from last year announcing categories, like, it's just person after person being like, sour, we're sour, you're in New York, it's sour. And, like, I heard it, I feel you, I get it, it's for you. Sour. It's the category this year. We're going to see some, I hope, incredible sour. I just saw incredible sour the other day.
Yeah,
so, like,
sour.
Saying. So,
Yeah.
I think we're going to see some incredible stuff in that category. It could be some sour crosses, too. It's okay. But yeah, so we changed that. We changed judging. I'm sorry to say. I know that obviously, like, we had very talented judges last year. People were very happy we worked with. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure that the focus was less about us. Like, the way we chose judges last year was me and the 3 co-founders picked too many names on a list, and then we whittled down that list to 20 judges. And that's fine. But it also means that we are the people choosing who judges all these people's weed. And that should not be. Like, we are not the gatekeepers of this. So the way we did it, which a huge shout out to Marijuana Talk, actually, for suggesting this idea to have growers judge the competition. Growers who enter the competition are able to judge. And so you enter the competition, you can volunteer to judge, and then we take the list of people who wanted to volunteer to judge. Who wanted to judge, and we put it on our spinning wheel, and we spin it 25 times. We increased the number from 20 to 25. So we have 1 extra judge in each category this year. And then, we have our judges, and they're growers. And that's great. Like, instead of there's no question of how the judging works. It's very straightforward. It's on the growers who enter. Like, it's up to, the whole thing is grower top to bottom, right? Like, I think that was another part of it, is that, like, growers judging is part of the whole point. Like, the growers cup. Like, the same reason we don't have a hash category. Like, hash is dope. I love hash. It's something else. Like, it's not just about growing then, all right? It's about washing. It's about all these other processes. So it's like, same thing. We don't have an edibles category. We don't have a pre-rolls category. We don't have any of that. We have flower, and it's 5 categories of flower, and it's like indoor, outdoor, wherever it comes from, whatever it is. Like, you enter that's it.
It's a grower's cup.
And that's it. It's a grower's cup. Judged by growers, entered in by growers, period. Like, that seems like that's our lane, right? So, like, this year is about focus. To sum up all of that bullshit, the focus is the point this year is like a little bit of expansion and a focusing of the point of what we're doing, and just, sharpening a little bit of stuff that I think we could have tightened up a little bit from last year or whatever, but, like, wasn't bad. It just wasn't as good as it could have been,
Talk to me about your love for cannabis. How did that happen?
Yes.
Like, where you are you originally from New York, or where you from?
Man, this is the dark secret of the New York Growers Cup. You're gonna make me put it on camera? Damn. I joke about this all. Like, I'm originally from Connecticut, a place that
Nothing wrong with that.
I disagree. But
Why?
no, I'm just kidding.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't want to be like shitting on my place of birth or something. Like, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. I have a lot of love for the place and the food and, like, whatever else. But I left a very long time ago, and I moved to Philly for college. So I was there for a long time. And, like, I moved to New York like 13 years ago now. And I've lived in Brooklyn the whole time.
You're a New Yorker.
And I mean, like, I don't ever want to be like, this is why I never claim New York, though, right? Like, there's a lot of different levels to that in terms of, like, people are like, my family's been here for generations. And you're like, all right, like, I get it. Like, I don't want to claim New York like that, but also, like, it's definitely my adopted home, right? Like, I've lived here forever. I plan on living here for the rest of my life. Like, I love New York. I feel at home here. It's like the only place I feel at home, pretty much the entire United States. So it's something that I love tremendously. And it's, like, very easy for me to rep New York hard for the Growers Cup and for everything I do, because, like, I chose to live here. It wasn't just like, I don't know, like, it's very much a place that, like, we could live anywhere else, but, like, we don't have kids. Like, there's nothing tying us down. It's like, we are intentionally living in New York because we love New York, But all of that said, yeah, I'm not from New York originally. So, massive caveat and all that. My colleagues are all, for whatever it's worth.
No, but your love for cannabis, like how did that happen?
So that started like, I mean, the first time I smoked, I was like 13, probably 14, 13, and like loved it immediately. Like I smoked a bowl of, I'm sure, terrible weed, a metal bowl in like a tree house being passed around. Like I'm sure it was, if I smoked it now, I'm sure I'd be so mad. But at the time, it was the first time I ever smoked weed, whatever. And I was like, I was stoned for hours. I remember being like, people have that experience of smoking for the first time, being like, oh, I didn't get stoned. Like, I did not have that experience. I was fucking stoned the first time I smoked weed. And it was like, yep, that's good. But at the time, like, I'm old, man. I'm 38. So, like, when I was like 13, they were like, drugs are bad. You're going to die. If you start smoking weed, you're gonna do heroin, and that's the end of your life.
The gateway. That's the
Gateway drug.
gateway drug.
It's like all this bullshit, like the egg in the pan. That's your brain on drugs. Commercials. Like I remember having dare classes where the police officer would come in and teach you about like how drugs are bad, and it's like whatever. So like I had that in the back of my head forever. Like it's killing your brain cells. It's gonna ruin your life, all the shit. But I loved smoking weed. Like the first time I smoked weed, it was clear that it was something I preferred to alcohol, like whatever, like forever, like throughout all of high school. I drank and stuff like everybody, whatever, like, and hated it for the most part. Like I like being drunk's kind of fun. Like I don't want to say that, but like I didn't like getting sick. I didn't like the hangover. I didn't like the taste of a lot of alcohol, like whatever, like a lot of it. But I always enjoyed smoking weed. I always had a good time. I had nothing but good memories of it, and was like, so I'm also a very skeptical person. And so over time, I started being like, maybe it's not so bad. You know, like I never smoked, I didn't start smoking regularly though until I was like 18 or 19 when I read this book called Marijuana Myth, Marijuana Fact. And it was a book that was a compilation of a bunch of different myths about cannabis, like marijuana is a gateway drug, marijuana kills your brain cells, marijuana does X, Y, Z, whatever, like leads to et cetera, et cetera. So, and it was written by doctors being like, here's all the studies telling you that this is not true. And it was like pretty fucking convincing. And it was exactly the convincing evidence I was looking for, also, right? Like I wanted to smoke more weed. And it was like, here, I promise you should smoke more weed. It's like, do you know that scene? There's a meme about this in that movie. Oh my God, I can't remember. It's with Tim Meadows. And he's like, no, you don't want to do this. It's gonna hurt you. It's Dewey Cox, the Dewey Cox movie, and he's talking about like all the reasons why you shouldn't smoke this joint, and all the things are fine. It's like it's not addictive, and you're not gonna have a hangover, and it's the cheapest drug in the world, and it's natural, and all these things. And it's like the whole point is that like weed is actually fine, right? Like all the things that all the people telling you that it's bad for you, like all the bullshit, the propaganda that's fed to all of us was all bullshit, and it was like a moment, right? When I was like, oh, I should have been smoking weed this whole time. What have I been doing? And I started smoking weed frequently. Um, but it was also a point in my life right then where I was turning around. Like I spent a lot of high school just like going to punk rock shows and not giving a shit about graduating high school. And so I did graduate high school, but like barely, basically. Um, and so I was like basically like fucking around in my hometown at that point and like working and not really like no like future path or plans to do anything. And I started working a full-time job and like started turning my life around and going to community college full time, just like figuring out like, all right, I gotta get the fuck out of here and like figure out a plan to get out. And it was also the same time that I read that book and started smoking weed more regularly. And I was like working all the time, going to school all the time, and smoking weed at night. And it was like a reward and something I came to associate though with like success because it was a time in my life that I turned my shit around and I was smoking weed more heavily than I ever had. So like, is it really weed that's so bad for you? Like maybe it's all bullshit, like this book is saying. And like after that, I had a successful career as a journalist for 10 plus years and smoked weed more heavily than like the whole time, like all the time, like every day, all the time, as much as I smoke right now, approximately, you know?
When you were a journalist, you cover any cannabis stuff?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I didn't really cover a lot of cannabis stuff until probably the last like year or two of my career. A lot of my career was spent covering like video games, technology, politics, economics, like a lot of different stuff. I covered tech companies primarily for a long time. But the last couple of years, I spent some time doing reporting on like some of the farms upstate that were converting from hemp farms to cannabis farms. And I did like a profile of cookies, Burner specifically. That was actually the last thing that was published right before I stopped working in journalism because I saw like part of the reason I started writing about more cannabis at the end was because I was like, oh, clearly there's something happening. Like New York is legalizing, like it's something I care about. I I had so much passion for weed, but I didn't know like I was still just a customer. I don't know how else to put that. Like there's the term like custies, right? Like I'm not trying to use the word custies. Like I know it's like sort of derogatory. But like I was still basically like just buying weed and didn't really know what I was doing, you know? Like I smoked a lot of weed. I was probably the most knowledgeable of all my friends about weed or whatever, but like I couldn't be like that's trop, that's sour, that's haze. Now I can do that shit no problem, right? Like but like I couldn't have done that at the time, you know? And uh it's definitely like it was clear to me though that there was like a depth there that I was missing that I wanted to go further into and didn't know how to access without like really going in. Like not like, oh, how can I do this as a journalist? It was like I need to like stop doing this job and go in like all the way in. Like there was no half-assing it, you know? There was no like, let me see how it goes writing about cannabis for a year and see how that like maybe I'll work it out. It's like, no, like I'm done with this. I need to do that. Like now is the moment if I'm ever gonna end a career and go all in on something like that I really care about. Like this is the moment, cannabis in New York, right? Like it would be stupid for me not to. I would regret it for the rest of my life, for sure. And so I'm glad that I went all in. You know? So
What's the biggest obstacle
to
that you have
getting into
faced?
cannabis,
Yeah, that you have faced. Having that transition from being a journalist and then going into full into cannabis, like
yeah.
to what you're doing. Like, what has been the biggest obstacle that you have faced?
I think like more than I don't know about obstacle. Like the biggest problem I've had, I think the biggest thing for me was basically changing my mindset. Like I had a really like I was from a different world. Like if you're from a background in corporate media, in any corporate environment, or in politics or whatever, like I spoke differently, I acted differently all the time, and not that differently, you know, but like code switching shit, like everybody does in those environments because you have to, because that's how it is. There's like a corporate culture that you have to adapt to, and like I said before, like when I was in high school, I almost didn't graduate because I was just like going to punk rock shows and shit. Like my background is not from like not like I'm a pretty like skeptical, questioning guy. I got a journalism degree because I'm like that is my nature.
Yeah.
Like it fits into who I am,
Yeah.
right? And so I mean I think that like this is something that applies in like a corporate environment that like it felt really out of place, right?
Yeah.
Like it felt like very like eventually it felt like feel really fake doing it, right?
Yeah, I understand.
And it's killing you. Like it was killing me, that's for sure. Like and it was like making it so that I was watering myself down. I was, you know, like a lot of the stuff that makes me who I am and creative and passionate was getting I was having to like, you know, tamp that down
Yeah, I
because of
understand
the
you.
environment, you know.
Yeah,
And that's terrible. Like that's literally like killing you. Like it's that shit is like time is what we got, right? So like if I'm wasting my time on that shit, it's like, yeah,
so you were doing shit to make other people happy instead of yourself, practically.
definitely. And honestly, to earn money, it becomes a thing where you're like, oh, it's about money and not about passion. And like I got into this about passion. Like I wanted to write about video games. I wasn't like, there's big money in writing about video. There is not. Like it was a miracle that I had a career that I was able to pay rent writing about video games, right? Like that was truly, it's like NFL shit. Like it's like impossible to actually make money doing that. Like I don't mean that to pat myself in the back. I mean that like it's very, very rare. And so like I, if I got into it with that perspective and then I ended up slowly going towards a career that was a lot more like, all right, well, I'm making a good amount of money and I'm doing something that I know how to do and I can keep doing it. But like, I'm not doing it because I care deeply about it. And that's like, if I'm not, then what the fuck is the point? Like, I don't know what to say. Like, that should be the whole thing. Like, obviously, I have to make money. I have to, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
But like, you know,
I mean, shit. I know now what's been the biggest success party that you've done? You know,
The biggest event
The
overall.
biggest event, like the biggest event that has the biggest outcome, biggest success overall. Yeah.
I mean, on just like a personal level, I think the most, like the things I like doing the most, at very least, are like the one-off drops where it's like the Godmother's drop in May is a great example of this. Maybe it was June, but
That one was a good one.
it was great. It's small, very small. It's 50 people. It's like a very focused thing. It's like we have food, like, but everybody, you can talk to everybody. I was actually able to talk to every person at that event, like hang out and smoke and like whatever. It wasn't like, I love doing bigger events and those are a lot of fun. And like, it feels like amazing when it's over because you're like, holy shit, we did it. Like, it feels like a project is over, you know? Whereas like, I still felt that way on like the Godmother's drop or the Bushwhacker tasting event or whatever, but like, it's a different thing because you're obviously, the scale is smaller and it's not as like, there's just not as many spinning plates, I guess, right? But it's still exhausting and stuff. I don't mean to say that, but it's like, yeah. But I'm most proud of those just because those are like so direct. Like it's so much more like you can make so much more of a connection between yourself and like you can walk up and actually talk to the grower and talk to them for a while. Like it's fine, and they're able to sell products and whatever. It's not just a selling event, right? Like a lot of things, like what I try to do more than anything else is to try to not just make things be like a sales thing. Like it should hopefully be, everything should have some aspect of like seshing and hanging out and meeting people and talking and developing community.
Yeah.
That should be the point.
And networking, you know, and opening avenues for other people, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's what you did with the New Year's Growers Cup, you know.
That's the idea, definitely. Yes.
You know, you open a lot of avenues for a lot of, you know, brands to work with each other, with cultivators, and then to also connoisseurs to meet the cultivators itself and brands and vice versa. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So working with all these New Year cultivators, bro, you got any favorites?
Favorites? Do I have any favorites?
You have any favorites? Like any okay, how my boy Collector says, you know, everything is by batch. You know what I'm saying? It's just that batch.
100%
You know what I'm saying? So tell me which are those like memorable batches that you remember, you know, from all these
best things I've smoked this year. I could definitely say that are, oh man, there's been some really fucking big bangers. I gotta say, like starting with first thing of the year. I'm gonna start with the Mac 1 from Semper. That was incredible from Semper Frosty. That was like a late last year, so it's like technically it's like late last year, early this year. You know, it's a crossover. It's like when a movie comes out right at the end of the year. You're like, is that? I don't know. Anyway, so that was incredible. The Collector's Holy Communion, also tremendous. One of the best hazes I've smoked this year. I'm going literally like I'm trying to go chronologically in the year. Like so, the Zainbow and the Newport Kush from OD Trees were both excellent. That Zainbow people slept on, and it's crazy. Like I still think that was like
from OD?
Incredible.
Not so
incredibly good. Yeah, right? I'm wearing a shirt right now. The Sour Kush from Max Grow NY. Tremendous. That Candy Fumes, this is not New York. That Candy Fumes C12, I got a shout out, of course, to the 516 Hort of Massachusetts. Very, very talented grower. That Cherry Runts from Mechanics Farm, that big Doja drop at 420.
Shout out to Mechanic Farms.
And of course, the Buds and Such continues to be dropping. That Super Lemon Haze. The oh gosh, what is it? The garlic cookies. I mean, it's a GMO. It's excellent. Very, very good.
Bro, you got them on a list, bro.
Smoking on this 4516 right now from Cloud Forest. That's really good.
That's heat. That's definitely heat. Yeah, that's definitely 5 out of 5.
This and the Star Dog were both excellent recently. I mean, like, I gotta shout out that Foos Flowers Starburst. That shit was tremendous. And the Puro Loco, tremendous.
Tremendous.
God, I know I'm gonna be forgetting people though. Like the Moon
Purple Octane Jealousy.
That Purple Octane Jealousy from Bodega right here.
Right now that we're doing this. That I just finished smoking. That shit was fire.
I think I told you, like, I smoked a bunch of stuff. I went back and got more of it because that's so good that I was like, I gotta get more. That shit is tremendous. And that's like the greatest compliment of all, right? You smoke something so good, you're like, I need more as soon as I can. Like that to me is like, we talk about all the flags. We talk about the hash ring and the ash and like, is it smooth? Does it have pressure? Like, how's the bud look? Is the structure good? Like, there's 100 things we can talk about all these things. But like, did you go back? You smoke that weed and say like, I want to buy more right now and smoke more? That's like, yep, that's 10 out of 10. That to me is a 10 out of 10. Like, fuck every other factor. Like that right there. It's base level. The most base instinct is like, I want to smoke more of that now. Like, how can I get more? I need to know what the price is so I can figure it out because I want to smoke more of that. Like, that's, yeah.
It's shit. No. I mean, there's a lot of good. New York is bringing a lot of good stuff. A lot of East Coast cultivators are bringing good stuff.
I forgot about the sour diesel, PCSD from Sensei Cultivation. I'd be remiss if I forgot. I forgot about, oh my god, the 10 lemons, the Dankenstein upstate.
Yeah, I want to try his stuff on that
Tremendous.
show, bro. That's one of the first person that I'm actually gonna aim for because I barely ever see him, bro. You know what I'm
No,
saying?
it's not down here.
Yeah.
All those the godmothers, the Zawa,
The
the
sour.
sour cross with Z.
See.
Woo! The White Tahoe Z. Woo! Come on. Like, it's
Yo.
been a great year for smoking great weed. I know I'm forgetting people. I'm certain I'm forgetting people here. And there's so much, like, Homegrow LI dropped a bunch of fire. Like, I gotta stop. I'm gonna stop listening to people.
There's
and
a lot of
great weed.
good. There's a lot of good cultivators. You know, shout out to everybody. What do you think about the New York State cannabis legal system? What are your thoughts?
The New York State cannabis, like the legislation, the MRTA, the Marijuana Reform and Tax Act, that legalized cannabis in New York State. You know, it's imperfect legislation, but generally speaking, it's fine. The way that the MRTA has been enacted by the Office of Cannabis Management and the Cannabis Control Board has been a total shit show and continues to be a total shit show, which is why New York City's cannabis scene looks the way it currently does, where there's over 2,000 unlicensed shops operating all over just New York City, not even the whole state. And it's impossible for the average consumer to know one from the other in terms of what's good and what's not. And a lot of people, just like in every market, will go to what's convenient and inexpensive, which is to say what's local to them and the least expensive that's local to them. And so a lot of people are going to smoke a lot of truly terrible weed. And if they go to one of the legal stores, they're going to smoke maybe even worse weed because the stuff that's available currently is, to a large part, very old and grown outdoor and in greenhouses. And so, like, with all respect to the people who grew it, I don't even remotely mean this to throw them under the bus. Their product has been sitting around for a fucking year.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge problem. There are some folks who have greenhouses and who have other ways that they can perpetually harvest. And some of that product, I'm sure, is better. But it's still restricted by the fact that it's being grown in greenhouses and outdoor in a place that is not where weed comes from. New York is not where, there are no land races from New York. Like, cannabis comes from tropical and mountainous environments and around the equator. It does not come from New York State. And so, like, you can grow outside, but like, you do a lot better job with an apple orchard. It's like, it's not really meant for that. And I'm not a farmer. I'm not saying that I'm not trying to say that as an authority or something on the matter. I'm saying that it's like a general, it's like it's a no duh kind of thing. Like, it's just a geographical question, right? And so you will get people producing quality flower here outdoors and in greenhouses. I don't even say it's impossible, but it's much, much more difficult than somewhere like California, for instance. So that's a big challenge right now. The only people who are able to have those licenses are people who formerly had licensing through the hemp program, and so they were greenhouse and outdoor. And so currently all the people we know, like all the people we've talked about, are unable to get licenses because of the way things are. And that's shouldn't be that way. Like, you should be able to go into stores and buy their flower, and they should be able to operate legal businesses, and they're ready to and can't. And that sucks. And the people who applied for licenses to open stores are in a even worse position where they're stuck in some weird legal limbo where the state's being sued because of the way that they rolled out the CAURD program, the Conditional Adult Use Regulation or Retail Dispensary Program, which is essentially the program that enables people to start having retail dispensaries. And the way that they rolled it out has opened them up to a lot of legal issues that has caused massive delays And currently, they're in a situation where all the people who were granted licenses are unable to even open shops. And so they're just stuck, which is maybe even worse than not being able to apply for a license. I'm not sure.
Fucked up, man.
Yeah.
It's really messed up.
It's really bad.
It's a sad situation actually because it looks like they didn't learn from the other states.
No, it looks like they didn't learn. And I think worse than that is that the response that they have is this incredibly defensive, dismissive, condescending response that they should know better. Like they should, I say this as a communications professional, they should know better. Like it is truly unfortunate to see them respond the way they do, to watch their social channels just be backpatting and self-congratulations about all the great work they're doing, while everybody who's involved in the industry here is complaining about the way it is done. Whether you're a grower who has a conditional license with an outdoor in a greenhouse, or a processor, or a retail dispensary, or somebody who can't get any of those licenses yet, like everybody is mad. No one is happy. And the state is saying, like, what a great job are we doing? Look at us. And you're like, how is this their messaging? It's crazy.
Throwing showcases all over.
Most definitely, yes. They are definitely shipped. They're throwing these farmers markets events that are, like, I guess that's intended to. The idea behind them was to enable the growers who have backups of product that they've been sitting on because they have no stores to sell it to sell it directly to people, which, I don't know, sounds an awful lot like the events that growers have been doing all over the state by themselves for years. Like, growers have been doing that without the state's helping hand and regulatory process and, frankly, like, needless bureaucracy for years. But now they're doing it because they messed up enough that they don't have enough stores open because they couldn't get any stores open, that they had to enable people to just have farmers markets. And so they have those going, which, like, I hope that's sort of helping or something. But, like, in the meantime, there's, again, over 2,000 stores operating all over just New York City selling weed to anybody. So, like, I don't know. Maybe figure out another solution. I don't know.
It's crazy, bro. It's insane, bro.
It's this attempt. I don't mean to, like, jump in. Like, I'm not trying to just, like, go on a rant. Like, it's over and over. You see this state to state where the state, after legalization happens, the way that it's enacted is they try to replace the existing market. They don't say, like, there's an existing market, let's figure out how to turn that existing market into a legal market. They just say, like, fuck them. Let's replace them with the people we think should be in those positions. And that never works. And it keeps it so that there are still dispensaries in Los Angeles or burner dispos in Los Angeles that are, like, still operating strong because the market there, the legal market that's been operating for a long time, is a mess because it's not competitive with the existing market. And that's what people should be doing, is working with the existing market instead of figuring out some way to create a new market. Like, that's the wrong approach. And it's over and over and over. And they're doing it again in New York. And it's like, stop. Like, it does not work.
Yeah, it's not worth it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I know you try to, like, merge, like, our friends, your friends with the legal market. You have told me that you have done some, some bonding, where they have talked,
Most definitely. Yeah.
But what can you do when sometimes you can't get resolved? You shit resolved, especially they're not even letting the indoor rock. That's another thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's killing a lot of, and then to sell old weed to the people in these showcases compared to your grow showcases where you're having fresh weed straight from the harvest, straight fresh. You know what I mean? It's a difference.
I mean, the difference is tremendous. Like, the difference when you see, like, that's the most convincing thing to anybody, right? When you show somebody, like, any of the weed in any of these jars, any normal person who smokes weed, and they compare it to the weed that they have normally, it's like, oh, what have I been smoking? Like, what have I been getting? Like, there's this, like, I've talked about this before about, like, being a customer and going from, like, being a customer or, like, a custody to, like, somebody who, like, I call it, like, the deep end, right? Like, we're in the deep end, right? Like, we, like, talk to growers. We understand, like, the parents of the strain we're smoking. We talk about, like, it's weed nerd shit, right? Like, I talk about it like that. But, like, there's levels to it, right? Like, I have a lot of friends who have been smoking weed for 20-something years who don't know any of this stuff. and would see this weed and lose their minds because it looks so much better than anything that they have access to. Still, right now, that they're paying $60 an eighth for, $80 an eighth for, or whatever, because that's most people smoking weed. Like, most people don't have access to weed like this, which is a huge bummer. Like, that's the number one goal, is to like change that. Like, that should not be. We should change that for sure. But like, it's really convincing because it's very different. Like, it smells different. It looks different. You taste it and you're like, oh, there's a taste. It tastes. But it doesn't just taste like smoke. Like, weed that doesn't just taste like smoke is a big deal for most people. Like, to say nothing of like hash holes or like, large joints or any of this stuff, right? Like rolling a big joint, like rolling like a 1.6 gram joint. Like, this is like for a normal person, this is like days of smoking, right? Like, it's because I smoke a lot of weed and whatever, but like that's all deep end shit though, right? Like, the normal person is like gonna buy a pre-roll or a vape or whatever, right? And like, it's whatever. There's different levels to it. But like, yeah, I think that when you see that weed though, that changes your experience of being like a customer, from being like, oh, I've been my whole life buying weed that is subpart of this weed and I didn't know. It's like turning on a light switch in a room or something. Like, it's like like you can't go back. Like, how do you go back? Like, I don't know. I could not. That would be really difficult.
Especially it being cultivated here in New York. That's the difference. A lot of people have been getting stuff from all over, from Florida,
Sure,
from California. I grew up here and we was getting shit from Florida.
Yeah.
Was getting shit from California.
Yeah.
But sometimes we were getting it from here too.
Sure.
That we don't even know because we wouldn't even worry about shit like that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Back in the day. But
it's that freshness though. It's the packaging.
Yes,
it's
fresh.
Everything. It's fresh.
Yes.
It wasn't vacuum sealed and shipped across the country or whatever, right? Like, it's all these other factors. It's like, this was harvested a few weeks ago and I know it was like a month ago, whatever it was, right? Like, it's not 6 months, a year old. It's like, it was the most recent harvest because they sell out of every harvest and that's it.
And they show you how they grow.
Yes.
They show you how they
Yes.
grow. They'll answer any question that you need to answer.
Yes.
Which in some of these brands, you probably won't get the answers that you need,
Right.
Or they won't even respond.
No, I mean, a lot of brands are just large though, right? Like, they're very large. Like, the Cali brands are much, much bigger.
Yeah.
Like, the scale, I think a lot of people don't understand. It's so different. Like, even the small batch stuff in Cali is like 5-10 times, probably more than that, the size of the biggest growers here. Like, we have a lot of small, very small grows. Like, yeah, I don't know how much people are aware of the scale difference, but it's like massive.
What does the future hold for Benno Caps, my bro? What is it looking like?
I hope the future looks like a lot more really strong sold out events with people who are really happy to have come to them. I hope the future is working with a lot of the people we work with right now, but as established companies who are operating in an actually competitive legal market. But like, as things are, it looks like it's going to be a minute, but that's fine. It just gives us more time to build and to build the brands that are already here. Like, we already have, like, it's New York. Like, we've got people who have like a long history of building strong, successful brands using their creativity. And you're already seeing that. Like, you've seen it, and like, it's amazing to see like how people show up for brands specifically who are waiting on drops. Like, you can see it happening the same way it happens with shoes or with game consoles or with albums or whatever, right? Like, people lining up excited, like fans, like real fans following. Like, that's the shit. That's the things we should be building. Like, that's the stuff. So I hope the future is more of that. Like, that's what I want to be doing, is building the culture here in a way that to me looks like interesting and creative and unique and something that's ours, that's different than the rest of the cannabis culture that already exists elsewhere.
And and you've been part of it. I mean, I've seen I've seen the lines made for the events. It's a beautiful thing when it comes to something that is home base.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying?
like, that will never be lost on me. Like, every time I walk down outside, like a line of people waiting for something I put on, like, and I don't mean to say I put on like it's just me. It's never just me. Like, every one of these events is me and 20 other people working a lot. Like, whether they're growing the weed or they're helping produce the event or they're doing security or showing up and doing recaps or any of the number of other trillion things that people do that make these things happen and make them successful. Like, I don't even remotely mean to say it as taking credit, but I mean that to say that, like, walking down the line is like incredibly meaningful to see that. Like people waiting. Like I've been on a million lines. I go to a lot of concerts, I go to a lot of comedy shows. Like I'm an event guy. Like I like going to live events, period. So I've been on those lines. I get it. Like I appreciate it. Truly. Like truly appreciate it every single time.
Definitely. It's dope to see that, brother. So the Purple Octane Jealousy was fire. I reviewed it before. Just look into my past reviews and you'll see it. It's there. I think I gave it like a 4.8 out of 5. The shit is bananas. The shit is off the chain. And if you're working with cultivators like that, is you know how to curate your stuff.
Yeah.
Brother, any last shout outs you want to give to the people?
Yeah, I want to shout out White Boy Kev. I got the La Marina Boy shirt on purpose.
Shout out to White Boy Kev.
Huge shout out to White Boy Kev. Huge shout out to all the Hayes men. I refer to them as like the Hayes men or the Hayes Brotherhood or whatever you want to call it. It's like a bunch of dudes who love Hayes, who are keeping traditions alive here in New York. Like I tell people often that when they smoke the Cuban Black Haze, like you're smoking like historic New York weed. Like, it's not like that shit is important. Like it's like that's some real history that you're like experiencing in real time and will be like a thing people talk about in 50 years, like in 100 years. Like it's crazy. It's really cool that those guys are still part of the culture here, that are still participating, that they're still growing great weed. Like I still get excited to smoke White Boy Kev's Cuban Black Haze out of a Dutch every time. Like I want to smoke it out of a Dutch every time, as God intended. And it's like it's great to be working with guys like that, though, right? Like, you know, I have a lot of respect and love for the many guys who are and women, of course, who are coming up, who are younger, who are like my age and younger. But like the folks that are like still in it, that are like 40 and up, and you've been doing it for like 20 something years, like that's really impressive. Like he's been doing it since the early 90s. Like that's pretty amazing. And he's here, and he's at more events than me. The man has more energy than any man I've seen. It's incredible. Like he is a powerhouse. So yeah, huge shout out to White Boy Kev. Huge shout out to the La Marina Boys and everybody who's part of that history in Hayes in New York City. Like it's a huge honor to be part of a time period that we're even like working together, you know?
If okay, last question.
Yeah.
No, we at Empire, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Any chance and hopes that you could work with Empire in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a chance that I could work with anybody in the future. It's never like I never say no to anything. I always say maybe, and that's because like there always has to be a compelling reason to work with anybody, right? And you know, my focus is on growers and is on New York growers specifically, and on connecting people with better weed and increasing like the floor. Like let's heighten the floor of weed for the average person in the world. That's the goal overall. So if there's something that makes sense for us to work together in that capacity, like absolutely, of course. Like they've got beautiful stores all over New York City, and that's incredibly impressive. Like there's no getting around that. But yeah, no, I mean I'm never shy about saying I'd love to see more incredibly talented New York growers being carried in beautiful stores and available to as many people as possible. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hopefully that could happen. You know, so you know what it is. This is Let Me See What You're Smoking. It was a beautiful episode with the brother Ben, all caps. It was an
thank
honor.
you. Thank you. It's an honor on all the honor is all mine. Thank you so much.
It was a great story that, you know, could inspire others. You know, shout out to Empire Cannabis Club for powering this episode. Shout out to Malala's child, you already know. And to the next one. Peace.